readers, my name is Charity, the host of Booktrovert Reader podcast. I'm introverted, but willing to talk about fantasy books. On this podcast, I'll do book reviews, author interviews, and fantasy book discussions. Come join me every week as I explore new realms and talk to amazing people. Hello readers, this is Charity, your host of Booktrovert Reader. I have an episode today to give an exciting book review of Blood Mercy by Vela Roth. I have my favorite bookstagrammer in the world, Bookish Megen, Megen. We are going to go break down the whole book of Blood Mercy by Vela Roth, as I said. I will venture to say there will be spoilers in the throughout the whole thing. We're not holding back because there's a lot to talk about in this chunky book. I keep saying chunky book, but it is. So this podcast would be done in 2 episodes, part 1, part 2. So definitely after this episode, next week, I'll be downloading the next one. So definitely be on the lookout for that because there's so much to say. We have a habit of talking a lot. So I am very excited. So Megen, definitely introduce yourself again.
Yay! Hey, I'm so excited to be back. And you're not joking when you say chunky. I just looked it up. It's 634 pages, this book. And this is an amazing book. So I'm very excited. It's one of my favorites. I've been waiting for a while for you to read it. So I'm really, really excited. I'm definitely going to give spoilers. The cool thing about this book that I will say pre-spoiler, as soon as I go into the spoilers, I will definitely mention it, is that Vela has guaranteed her readers a happily ever after, which for someone like me, I love that, especially because there's so many books. Right now, there's 8 books, multiple novellas, or there's going to be 8 books. I can't remember. Is there 8 already out?
I think there's like 8.
Yeah, so what if I remember correctly, I think what happened was Amazon couldn't print a book that big, so she put it into 2 books.
When I saw that, I thought, oh, it's just different people's story. I've never seen anything. I was like, who names a book part 1, part 2?
Yeah, no.
And then when you explained that to me, I was like, oh, I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, like she has a love affair with words that I just can't get over. I don't think anyone writes like Vela, like anyone at all. But I will say that I know that this is a lot to dig into. And as a new reader, if you need an intro to the world and you don't want to commit to like the over 600 pages, her novella, I think it's Blood Price, is a really good introduction to her writing and the world. Have you read that one yet?
No, I have not. I got lost with all the books she wrote.
Like I've had to reach out to her multiple times. I'm like, hey, what order are all these exactly?
Okay,
are they standalones? Like I've had to reach out. Just a little bit of history. I joined Bookstagram, I don't know, what was it?
April of last year.
Yeah. So basically, Vela was my first author that gave me an ARC, an advanced reader copy. And it was the first street team that I was on and everything, and it was while she was doing her re-releases, because these books have all been out previously. They were just out in a different format, and I don't know if they were in physical form or just e-copy. I can't remember. I had them on e-copy, ebook beforehand. I didn't have the physical copy until she started this re-release, but she was doing like each month was like a new re-release with these beautiful covers and maps updated and everything. And I have to tell you, she is one of the sweetest, most supportive authors that I have ever like had the pleasure of like being on their team. So I have like a huge soft spot for her. I feel like in her real life, she is a Hesperine, how she is. And I feel like the way this book talks, like if she was able to, that's how she would even talk in real life. She's just, she's an angel.
What I really loved about this book is I had a glossary in the back, and that doesn't happen very often. And I'm glad because the world building is really intense. You get introduced to a lot of things, and it can make or break a reader. But the glossary is there for me to refer even to names that or side characters that was in there. So I was like, oh yeah, that's the noble for whatever reason that was thrown in there, and that's what I really liked about it.
I love that too. To the point where like I'm one of those people that wants to reread a series when a new book comes out, but with these books,
Mm,
that's just not always possible. So
yeah.
it's very easy if you just go to the glossary, or if you've forgotten where there's a name or what, you can just go to the glossary, read it, and it gives you pretty in-depth descriptions, like the more it goes
Hmm.
on. So I'm always really impressed by her care. Like, she gets it. This is a high fantasy romantasy. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
It's
it
high.
is.
It's high.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't like high fantasy and you're not ready for it, it can be it can be a lot, but it's so kind, and it's just so beautifully written. And these characters, they're so like rich, and you get the time with them, that
Hmm.
it's excellent. I really love the magic building. Okay, I might start going into spoilers now. Like, I
Okay.
don't
Official
yeah, like, just
spoilers.
just so
We're not gonna
everyone knows.
we're not gonna warn you anymore. This is your last warning.
Yeah.
Turn back
Yeah.
now and read the book.
So to me, Cassia's superpower is definitely her brain, right? Her strategy.
Yeah.
Um, and I really liked that about her. She plays chess, everyone else plays checkers, you know? And Leo is just the cinnamon roll of my dreams. Like, I absolutely adore him. He's so patient, he's so kind. I feel like this book is such kind of like a healing book. And when I say that, I mean because it's so sweet and kind of cozy, in a
Hmm.
way that that like you're used to, like, say if you read dark romance, or you're used to like always thinking the worst of characters.
Yeah.
So like I would have anxiety sometimes reading these books, thinking, oh no, oh no, oh no, because I'm so used to a certain way of writing that I'm like, oh my, you can't trust this person, you can't. And sometimes you can. But I was really surprised that I always have to remind myself, like, Vela promised us a happily ever after. Don't worry, even if it ends on a cliffhanger, don't worry.
Do you know how many books she's got coming?
I don't, and I think she's doing that on purpose. I'll be honest with you, because originally I think Blood Gift was at one point slated to be the end, and it is not, of their story, and it is not. And she is seems to be dodging anyone's that like says that like asks basically when is the last book. And I don't know if that's because these characters and the world has developed that now she had to go even like deeper or further in, because I know that she in Blood Gift she gives us more spice and a little bit more action than in some of the other ones, and
Hmm.
that was, I think, added, so it may have made things longer, or like may have developed in a certain way. I don't know. That's a good question for Vela. Like, if we can get her on.
Right?
Like, that's an excellent question, because I know at some point she is going to give other characters books.
Mm,
And I
okay.
I know that because there's a lot of characters in some of these books. Like, as they go on, you get to you get to know more of the people that we already know, and you get introduced to other people. But I've talked a lot. I've got more to say. Like, you're gonna have to like stop me so you can tell me things, because I have even more.
Okay, so initial reactions, the I would say my first reaction was that the world building is very heavy and very descriptive. A lot of times I would say that would drag me down, but it was told in a way that kept you interested and intrigued. It wasn't like info dump kind
Yeah.
of version of it. So that's what I really liked about it a lot. There was a lot of setup in the very beginning, and but that was a good thing to understand Cassia and where she was coming from. And then of course Leo and who he is and their culture. I think that was very intrigued about. How do you say the Hesperines? Is that how they say it?
Hesperines. Yeah. Like, hold on.
Hesperines.
I had to give myself a pause, because I almost said it completely wrong. Hesperines. Yeah. I'm always open to me mispronouncing things. Back to what you were talking about. So I agree with you. Like, the way that she will even let you know things. Like, say for instance, whenever I'm jumping ahead, like one of the first times that they actually meet and kind of have like a moment, like an embrace moment, and she like walks
Mhm.
away. Like, she walks away with like a sway in her step. Like, it's that it's like the observations through other characters where you see, oh, like we didn't get to experience that through Cassia's point of view, but we can
Mhm.
tell because we know Cassia so well, and we can tell by the
Yeah.
way that he describes her that she's feeling him. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. It's like she's just so. Anyway, I'm gonna stop and get back to the plot. Hesperines are really interesting in terms of their culture, and I can't
Mhm.
wait for you to learn more about it because you learn a lot
Yes.
more about it in book 2.
Mm. I would not, because I was about to say, "Hey, let me talk about the ending." And I'm like, "No."
Yeah, I know. That was what I was about to do. That's why I was like, okay, I'm going to stop right now and I'm going to go back and look at the outline and like we're going to stick to talking about the storyline right now.
This outline is not just for you, it's for me too. So,
Yeah.
because I was already racing to the end.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, so we got this book is a dual point of view. It has Leo and Cassia's point of view. And what I've really liked a lot about it is that it showed a lot of Leo's point of view. And a lot of times it's chapter after chapter after chapter. So you got to know him very well. It wasn't a fleeting moment. It was like we got to know him.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really beautiful about these books is that there is such strong character development in this that you just like you understood why Cassia did what she did and why Leo was doing what he was doing. It made me heavy sigh a lot. I was like, oh.
Yes, it does. That's the perfect way. Because I am always nervous because you have to like high fantasy. It's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And even people that don't like high fantasy can like this because, like I said, it's very singular in the way that I feel like she writes. I personally have never experienced a high fantasy or romantasy book like this one. And I don't know, I guess, enough about the writing style to be able to put it in a specific like box, but it is so fun to read. Like it don't get me wrong. If you're not prepared for the 600 pages, it can be a lot and can be overwhelming, but that's okay because you can set it down and put it back up. And now it's available in audiobook. So you can
Oh,
consume it even more cuz like that's just recent. Right now I think there's 3 of the books that are out on audiobook, but she's doing them kind of like rapid release. So they're very quickly going to all be out on audio.
so let's talk about overall thoughts on the story and mainly the world building aspect of it. I know we touched a little bit about that, but what do you think about the world in general that Cassia set in?
Look at all this really quickly about like all
That's
my
fine.
notes.
I'll sip my
uh,
tea.
because I did do a lot of notes about how like what specifically I like about these characters,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't remember if I did anything about the world. I will say that the magic system and the world is described really well in such a way that I can take it in quickly with just like a couple sentences. And then when they go more in depth with it, it's interesting instead of daunting. Like the way and like how it, like not to go straight to the ending or anything, but how it kind of comes together in the end because we are experiencing the magic system at first with Leo because we're introduced at the jump with
Mm-hmm.
Leo, kind of like seeing Cassia and like talking about what's going on. And we kind of get to experience what the blood union is like and everything. And then we also get the perspective of Cassia, which is brand new baby, doesn't really know a lot about this world. I really liked having both of those perspectives. It helped, I feel like, understand it a little bit more because we were getting to experience the magic that he was making or weaving. And then we also got to be Cassia, where we were like, wait, I have questions, you know? So I thought it was really well done. And I think it's a really kind magic system. And it's very okay. So Hesperines are basically vampires. And to take a twist on vampires and make them so empathetic, the opposite of what we've been told, like these dark creatures that dwell and prey and are vicious and like heartless
Mm-hmm.
and soulless. It's the opposite of what she's done, which is gorgeous. So I'm a huge
Yes. Yes, because you're used to them being bloodthirsty, ruthless, morally gray characters. A lot of times that's how they're portrayed in this book, in books. But this one, they're considered very gentle. They abide by rules that are governed by their morals.
Mhm.
And they do not drink blood unless they were given permission. And they don't even drain blood until the person dies. And something that was revealed in the storyline is that they can turn people into Hesperines as well, but they seek permission, and only if they're on the brink of dying. So
Yeah.
before they give them a choice to say, hey, you can go on to the next life, or we can turn you over.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very well written in that aspect, because I thought that was so creative in that. So
And I have to tell you, I part of me wonders like where and how did she make this world? Like, did she start with, oh, I want a twist on vampires and then
mm-hmm.
just like go crazy? Or did she go with the magic system, the world building, the culture? Because I feel like it's so thick. Like, and I know that she said that she's got like notebooks and notebooks just full of like the lore, which I find like really like I want her to publish those. I really liked it, and I thought it was very interesting very quickly, because it's not something that I've seen before. So I really liked the story. The fact that Cassia is so clever, and we get to see her biding her time, playing her hand while doing it all very very cautiously.
Yeah, because just to get into it, the next point is that Cassie was actually considered a bastard child of the king. It's not like any physical abuse, but it was definitely emotional and mental abuse that this king did to her. And she literally would be in fear of going to him anytime he calls her into his throne room, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And you kind of feel that fear and that desperations of her trying to get away, and she sees the Hesperines as a way to get out of that.
Yeah. And also, we learn like why she so desperately wants to seek out the Hesperines with her sister's backstory, which
Mm-hmm.
the way that it starts is we don't exactly know a ton, right? We don't know why she really wants to seek out these Hesperines in such detail, and then we start to learn like the other layer of fear that is also with her father. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just that, oh, like she could do this or that or whatever. It's also she saw what happened to her sister and knows the
Wow.
decisions that her dad made that led to that choice. So it's like a whole other layer of worry. I
Mm-hmm.
will say I loved the scene with young Cassia when she finds out about her sister being dead and how the Hesperines don't speak down to her. They basically treat her like just like with so much kindness. Now, I'm not saying that they like speak to her like they would speak to an adult necessarily, but they don't speak down to her. They don't belittle her. They validate her, and like they give her that like mantra that she repeats in her head. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but like when she was down on herself because she was believing what everyone else said, like the people around her, her father, like telling her she's useless, she's all these things. And then the reminder of like, well, what did your sister say? Like, how did your sister see you? And that's what you need to hold on to. I just, oh God, it makes me want to tear up. It's so sweet. Yeah. And I think, I don't know where we want to go with the story, but I start basically whenever, like, I start making heavier notes whenever Cassia has a seat at the table to start
Mm-hmm.
making decisions. Because, like, when we first meet Cassia, we're still learning. And when we first meet Leo, we're still learning about their world and like where they are. But then like I feel like the story really starts like moving whenever Leo decides to help her get a place at the table. Like he's gonna wrong this right, you know, in whatever way he can. He's very I'm gonna fix it. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna fix it.
Yeah. And he majorly screws up in that way.
Mhm.
She's like, how dare you do that? Step into is happening, because she's still in fear of what her father will do to her. She's like, how could you step in like that? He's like, oh, I'm just trying to help.
Yeah.
The common one-liner from a man,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm just trying to help.
Yeah. But I do really love the way that like if you listen to like Leo's reaction, he did it really well. Like he apologized. He was the opposite of what she was used to seeing, like
Yeah.
ego over like listening to anything. So I really liked that she was pissed because it was totally in line with her. And I liked
Hmm.
that she basically told him, I'm not your pawn. Like, I may be the king's pawn, but I'm not yours. And, like, she is no one's pawn. Like, everyone else is her
Right.
pawn, really. But I thought it was really intuitive. Like, he watches her a lot. He's very intuitive, impatient. He almost kind of, like, tried to puppet master her. And she was like, no, this is not, if you're going to do that, we don't fucks with each other. And I just loved that. Like he wants to challenge her and he still maintains to try to challenge her to think outside of more than survival and trying to make her thrive. But I like that he was like, I completely see where I messed up and it makes sense. And I loved that line where he says, "You are wasted on necessity and managing." I think is what he says. I just loved that line.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the character development in Cassia was really, I really love seeing her development just because of the fact that, she started out with just, I'm desperate to get out. I'm just doing what I can to survive and everything. Don't speak out. Don't stand up. Just be small. Be quiet. Don't be invited to the king's table. And then through her interactions with Leo, she starts learning that she has a voice and she started
Yeah.
standing up. Through Leo, she learned to stand up for herself, which translated at the end of the book her standing up to her father and things like that, regardless of consequences that she felt that might arise. And I love that development in her because you
Yeah.
saw it.
Yeah, she had a very like I just want to survive and I'm going to do good as far in the back as I can, and if I just stay small and little, I can do what I can do without anyone taking notice. I like I think Leo said something about like it was like something about putting tools in her hand to help her dig her way out of like the
Mm.
situation she was in, and for her to be like a gardener as well. I just like love like I feel like there's so many like different aspects. Like we meet Cassia and she's a gardener, which automatically tells you and like through knowing certain things you're like, well, she's nurturing, she's patient, you know what I mean? Like you automatically get these supporting subliminal like messages when you find out
Mhm.
about each of these characters, which is one of the things that I think is so beautifully done because there are a lot of words and it would be really easy, like you said, to info dump. And she tells a story while like not speaking down to her reader. And I really like that. And Night is the best. Like, I love that there was a dog in this.
The dog that's specifically trained to attack Hesperines, and they're impossible to kill, but this dog apparently can. So, and it listens only to Cassia and everything. I thought that was an interesting element too, as well. It makes me, unless it was said in the first book, but it makes me wonder why she was given that dog from the very beginning. Like, what was the reasoning behind it?
I don't remember. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, I don't
Hmm.
remember. I don't know if
There,
it's just because I feel like it is talked about in the first book, right?
I, I think so, but I might have been just going through it and I didn't pick up on the detail.
Yeah.
So, but there
Um,
was a, I felt like the king specifically gave that dog to her for that reason.
I know that like there's a real fear of like the Hesperines and everything. So
Hmm.
I don't remember, but I do really like how Knight is another character and
Yeah.
he like struggles between following his instincts to protect her from even like the decisions he believes it's putting her in jeopardy, because there's like that scene where she's going to have to be alone with Leo, who is a
Hmm.
Hesperine, and Knight is really uncomfortable. He's like, no, I don't like this. Like, I have to go with you,
Right.
without saying it in words, obviously, because he is a legion hound.
Legion
Um,
Hound. Yep.
yeah,
I think Leah was like, "Oh, can I hug her?
yeah, yeah,
Can I be near her?" And he would look at the dog and like, "Can I do this?"
yeah. I love how he. Of course, I know that part of it is the cultural aspect that he's been raised in and the magical aspect of this world, but I love how patient he is with with Knight and with Cassia, and how
Mhm.
like respectful, like he will like read them, let the dog that basically can kill him like pretty easily like sniff
Mhm.
him and get close to him just to be like, hey, no, we're good, like she's safe with me. I really like it so much. But I will say, whenever Cassia does submit herself as a speaker, it's very interesting to see how she copes with how nervous she is about it, and like
Mhm.
the mind and like the way that she is like processing, like how she just basically said that she's going to take one moment at a time, and that she would, like, what did it say, like she would defeat each moment as it came. And it's probably quoted a little bit differently, but something like that. And I thought that was so beautiful. It's just like a moment at a time, just taking a moment at a time, and it was such a beautiful way of saying that. Like I
Yes.
really, I really liked that.
I think that's why, with how Cassia processes and, like you said, moment at a time, it's like relatable
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to be, oh, I'm unafraid. You know, you know, it takes time to build that trust, that confidence, and even like going back to the Leech Hound, even like Leo had to earn his trust. So
Yep.
it's just like it took time and took
Yeah.
development, and it wasn't like, and we'll talk about this in the next part, but I'm glad it's not instant lust. So
This is a slow burn in a way that you really get to know these characters, and these characters really get to know each other, and you get to see the way that Leo recognizes what she's going through, and how little she gives trust to people. So that
mhm,
means like even more to him. Like if he can, and it's not so much like a challenge. It's not like, oh, I have to gain her trust because it's challenging. It's because she's very interesting and I want her to trust me. It's like
mhm,
it's all very innocent perspective that it comes from. It's not like he's doing this to try to get something from her, or even for the reason that he's there, which is to make peace, like for the
mhm,
summit. It's not really even, it may start out like, boom, he sees her and he's very interested in her, but had he met her and she not be like the chess player that she is, it would have gone differently.
mhm.
He's definitely patient, like, in there's like the virgin trope, they're both virgins in this. And I'm not usually a huge fan of like virgin tropes, but especially because he's like older, like
Yeah.
it's like he's like Hesperine age. I liked it, and it made sense in the way that they described why, like there are rules and everything, that it made complete sense, and it was just so sweet for them. So sweet for them. It's just a sweet book. Yeah, and hey, how did you feel about, oh god, what did they call it? The Krana and the
Oh, the way they talked about their genitals.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, what is an elegant way to say that? I've already cursed
Well,
once in this.
this this just went from explicit. uh, I I mean, I didn't care. I'm not hung up on the words. To be honest, but I thought it was
Yeah, I
interesting how
I thought
they
it was
she
sweet.
chose to go a differently on this one.
Yeah, because this is kind of like the way that I would describe this to someone is it is spicy, but it's for people who have issues with like certain words or whatever.
Mhm.
Like it's very clever how she was like, well, I'm gonna skirt around that, like I'm gonna
Yeah.
make my own delicate like words in a different language that we will
Right.
use, because Cassia, being like the prim proper Cassia that she is not comfortable using the other words. So he's like, would
Mhm.
you, here are mine, and you can use them if you want, which is just another sweet, beautiful thing that Leo does. I love these characters. But yeah, I'm usually not a fan of the virgin trope, but it was it was a small part of the story too. Like you just kind of find out, and then it very quickly, like they're not virgins. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what kinda like some books did the virgin trope. They really make a big deal out of it and all this stuff, and this one is like, I'm a virgin. Alright, I'm ready to make this choice with you. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big ordeal, or I mean, it was, we'll talk into the second part. We have to talk about the Hesperines, okay?
Okay.
Outline.
Outline. The
I do.
bastard child. Did I ever say anything about thoughts on Cassia being the bastard child?
No, you didn't.
Okay, just kidding. The thoughts on Cassia being a bastard child. It's so wonderful to know how much she was loved and wanted by her mother. You know what I mean? Even though she necessarily didn't get to experience that, her sister kept that alive. You know what I mean? And
Right.
told her that. So I think that having her sister and that memory of her mother really helped her to have some self-worth. I think that the king is so horrible, and the way that he's so mentally abusive, and you only get to see it, you hear about it, and then you get to see it in like think maybe one scene in this book where he basically has like where he actually says words like you were nothing, basically. Like he still treats her shittily. He still treats her
Go for
badly
it.
and still like compares her and like all this other stuff, but you see one where he is mad at her and basically tells her like you have no seat at the table, you are nothing, this is what you're going to do as like punishment. And the kind of like mental, like the bowing and like that kind of mental thing, and then how she copes with it and her little rebellion that she does internally. I thought it was a very interesting dynamic because we don't really see a ton from the king. We'll see like her overhear stuff, but with her and the king, I feel like we don't get a ton of scenes with just them two together. So I think it was very quickly told how he is to her with those scenes that they did have. And it also, I think, is a very smart way to do it because it was very effective without being like super triggering. You know what I mean? I thought I feel like Bella is very kind in the way that she deals with harder topics. Like when Cassia finds out, was it her lady's maid? Was basically, I don't remember the name of the person, but like what happened there and like how she was attacked and how he was going to grape her. We'll say grape with a G, just in
Great.
case. Basically, how her lady's maid was assaulted, right? And she was very kind about how she brought that up, and like there wasn't like huge details or anything. I think she's very mindful of her trigger warnings, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and her audience. Not to say that that's bad if you're not, because obviously there are multiple choices, but I do think that Bella tries to go out of her way to write kindly as she can these hard topics. She tries to tread as gently as she can, and I thought that was very interesting, like because you don't see that. You either see it kind of glossed over completely, or and like that like makes you upset and you're triggered for that, or
Right.
you see something that is like super detailed and can be really heavy. And not that
Yeah.
that's doesn't have its benefits. There's a time and place for both of those things, in terms of like being very heavy and in terms of like maybe the author doesn't want to go there, doesn't feel like they can do it respectfully. But I feel like Vela is really good at doing hard things gently and it having the impact that it needs to have for the story and the character. Like I feel like Vela's done it all very very as kindly as you can do hard topics. And I do think that, like I said, there's a time and place for everyone express what they need to express and how they need to express it. And as a reader, you get to make those decisions, you know, and it's better if you can make those educated decisions. But I do think for those that are out there that want to read this book and don't mind spoilers and are listening to this beforehand, just so you know, I feel like in my opinion, I feel like she handles them all very gently while still getting the impact that you need in terms of like this dude is a bad dude and he needs to be stopped, and Cassia's gonna like do what she can to make sure like she helps this person and that she apologizes for the danger that she's put her in, because she would send her out to get soap and do all these things that was basically putting her friend in danger of possibly getting assaulted every time it was happening. And her friend worked for her. And so she didn't feel
Right.
comfortable because there's that power inequality there. She didn't feel comfortable saying, oh, I can't do that. But I do remember her at one point, I think, mentioning something about a different soap or something, but she was trying to get her out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, it, I love that Cassia saw that and apologized and addressed that. And there's something so healing in that and in the way that Cassia and Leo just go about this whole story and like interact with people. There's really something so healing and being like him seeing her so well, and then also her seeing her surroundings and people. I couldn't say enough good things about it. But yes, back to the Hesperines. I've pretty much already told you what I think of the Hesperines. What do you think of the Hesperines?
Just a little background on Hesperines. They can only come into this world every 200 years. And it's basically to come into this world to negotiate, things like that. So I thought it was very interesting that there's just a small time slot that Cassia felt like, this is my only chance. This is the chance in the once in a lifetime situation that we're going to get to see these people. And I love their culture. I think I was more invested in Leo's side than I was of Cassia's side, just because I felt like the world of them was very amazing, very immersive, and I want to know more.
Yeah, you're
So,
just going to love the future books then. Like,
yeah.
they're only going to get better and better for you then.
Good.
Yeah.
Because I'm here for it. It's like on his side, it's like I'm getting that Lord of the Rings elves, It's just like you want more of it because it's so unique and so beautifully told that I'm just like, okay, Cassie, I'm sorry, but Leo, come.
And what did you think? I don't know that you actually said it. What did you think of Cassie being the bastard child of the king?
I felt bad for her
Yeah.
because she didn't choose that situation for herself. Because of her position, she wasn't able to, take her sister's place in, as an heir. She was looking down upon in the court. I felt really like, man, felt bad for her in a way that she was like trying to wear clothes that didn't draw attention to her. She was trying to get far away as possible because her father was trying to marry her off and get rid of her, and she was trying to think of ways to prevent that from happening. And so I really felt like bad because I know she didn't choose that situation, and she's just trying to do the best she can to create her own life by her terms.
Yeah. And the king was definitely very like controlling and like obsessive about even her mom. It's all it's all very quick to be like, man, Cassia, I can just imagine, what that must have felt like. So you automatically are on her side.
Yeah, and I think even like when she tried helping in the kitchens or tried helping in the gardens, like even then, even in the in the servants area, they were still judgmental of her.
Yeah.
And that just broke my heart because, they just, oh, the nobles look down on her, the king looks down on her, so we will too, because
Yeah.
you were born into that situation. And I felt like it was so unfair to be treated that way. Those moments was hard because I just that the storytelling of that was just, you made it, you can feel her pain and her
Yeah.
just trying.
Yeah.
So,
She's like, I'm just trying to help y'all. I'm just trying to like get
right.
past your like prejudices and like your beliefs, like because everyone just believes so blindly about like the Hesperines, or like just even at the
Hmm.
beginning. Yeah, yeah. No, I completely understand.
Yeah, that's that. I'm glad you said that because that's what's interesting about Cassia is that because she was in that position, she was very open minded to understand who the Hesperines were.
Mhm.
And she was probably one of the first humans, the first mortals to actually go to them and start asking questions about who they truly are.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool that she was like very open minded and wanted to learn their culture.
What are your thoughts on Leo's character? Because I feel like I have already said a lot there too.
Yeah. What can I say? I just like how driven Leo was, just earning her trust And I think that's just can be so beautiful in itself that he wasn't rushing or forcing himself on her, like how some morally gray characters out today. And it just painted a whole different picture on the male point of view character that what I'm used to reading, if that makes any sense
Yeah.
at all.
No, it makes complete sense.
Because, you know, like I would say Court of Mist and Fury is like my top book, I would say. And he's very assertive and very forceful and like, I wouldn't say forceful, but, you know, he's a different character.
Dominant.
But yeah, dominant. Leo wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
He understood really quickly that Cassie was didn't trust very much and didn't very well. And there's a story behind it. And he's like, all right, I'm willing to do the work to do it.
Yeah.
To be kind to her, to earn her trust, to do nice things for her, things that normally other people wouldn't do.
Yeah. And what I liked is he wasn't doing it because he's like, oh yeah, I want to be able to drink her blood and like have sex with her, or like it wasn't it was because she was in pain and like he like could recognize all these beautiful aspects about her and how like she deserved better, and it just kind of became more and more from there. But yeah, I really liked that as well. And I do think that what you said is interesting because yes, this like one of the reasons I think that this book is like no other isn't just the writing style, but also the fact that he's a different kind of cinnamon roll. You know, he like unpacks her. You know what I'm saying? Like he puts that time and effort in and reads her social cues, and obviously he's able to tell how she's kind of feeling in terms of like distrust and like, you know, like because of his gifts that he has. But it is very, it's not like submissive, it's not dominant, it's equal. You know, it's we are equals in this, and that I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, and I think there wasn't much instant lust. I call it instant lust, but I think at the first thing that drew him to her was that he instantly can pick up her scent, and it's a very unique scent to him. I know that it kind of gets into the book as to why maybe that is the case, but we are not going to talk about that because that's the end of part 1.
Okay, yay! We'll stop it here then.
So readers, definitely be looking out for part 2 of this book review that I'm doing with Megen. It's going to be launching next week, so definitely if you haven't read the second half of the book, I know we were all over the place, but we're going to talk a lot more, like more of the magic system, the family dynamic, and the feast.
Yeah, more of the plot that that also kind of happened.
What makes this more of like a fantasy romance, and what makes this more of the behind the scenes of the king and who he really is. So yeah, definitely be looking out for that episode. Join us next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, readers, for listening to my podcast on fantasy books. I hope you're enjoying the content and finding it helpful in discovering new books to read. If you have a moment, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Booktrovert Reader to stay updated on new episodes and other book-related content. Thank you again for your support, and happy reading!